Hello, my friends. Let's talk about Persona 5 one last time. In my first evaluation, I discussed the themes and influences that the historic sophists had on Persona 5, mostly in the manipulative and self-advantageous dialogue mechanics of our main character. And in my second video, I looked at the modern theory of law within the court system to evaluate whether the Phantom Thieves could in fact be said to stand on the side of justice. That conversation also involved discussing how the rules of how the metaverse operates to build the case, and these rules are going to come into play again for this video too. So you may want to check out my video on the justice of Persona 5 before I review those rules today. To my surprise, the majority of people I talked to actually took the stance that the Phantom Thieves were not just, because they were acting in self-defense or self-interest being the main motivation. While I loved that dialogue, I have to say that I am still on the side of the Phantom Thieves. In another video, called The Difference Between Justice and Equality, I discussed and defined the three historic senses of justice, and whether we are talking about creating the good, or the punitive sense of justice, or the retributive sense of justice. I believe the Phantom Thieves to meet the burden in all cases. A person doesn't need to be self-sacrificing to be just. Today, however, I want to talk about something else. Now that I have finally finished Persona 5, the time is right to look at the game and its story as a whole to parse out the full and complete philosophy of Persona 5. And that philosophy is thus: absolute power corrupts absolutely. Major spoilers for every part of Persona 5 ahead, so you're on notice. Let's start by looking at Kamoshida. With his former Olympian prestige, the distortion that grew in Kamoshida's heart was the thought that he was a literal king within the walls of the school. He believed that he was free to do whatever he pleased, and thus believed it was right to do whatever he pleased. His personal abilities, physical prowess over the common man, gave him a power that no common man would wield. Next, we fought Madarame, an abusive benefactor of the arts. Within the public sphere of the art world, Madarame was a superstar, beloved by both the devout art connoisseur and the casual art appreciator. With an abundance of fame and the irrational level of goodwill that the public gives to celebrities, Madarame was free to neglect and abuse his pupils with little to no scrutiny. Fame empowered Madarame. When we punished the illegal actions of Kaneshiro, merely a mid-level crime boss, Kanoshiro had access to a boundless supply of wealth, and he was happy to use that wealth to obtain any luxury life would offer, but also to extort and blackmail anyone who still had $1 in their pocket or a yen in their coin purse. Money empowered Kaneshiro to fix any problem with a price, or to offload any problem he couldn't fix to someone else. Okumura, in a similar fashion, had that same power of money on his side. His success and his ability to prove himself a better businessman than his father led Okumura to seek even greater heights in the form of political power. However, Okumura didn't realize that the power of politics is a different kind than the power of money over labor, and he paid the ultimate price for that mistake. In many theories of political science, a government or political power is defined as the actor who has a monopoly over violence within a given region. Theoretically, a just political power is one that only points that violence outward at other governments that would choose to threaten its citizenry, or at other actors among those citizens who would engage in violent or harmful behaviors against their fellow citizens. Senator Shido, on the other hand, was able to usurp that monopoly on violence from within, thanks to the existence of the metaverse and a little Machiavellian-style fortune. With total dominance over the political power of Japan, Senator Shido became the single most corrupt individual the Phantom Thieves faced, as he rode atop his Geiger-esque golden chariot made of people. It's at this point that I want to pause and appreciate this glaring reference to Plato's three-part theory of reasoning, also called the tripartite theory of soul. In the Republic, Plato described his theory with the allegory of the chariot. In that, the rider represented rationality. One horse was content in its needs, but the other horse was wild and powerful. A wild and powerful horse represented thumos, the desire to achieve, to be greater than the people around you, and to be recognized for your greatness. Plato also described that people led by this nature were the most dangerous people in society and needed to be taught to channel those passions into virtuous pursuits. To complete Persona 5's reference, the Republic went further into a discussion of whether it was better to be just or unjust. To this, Plato, using Socrates as his mouthpiece, described another allegory. He asked us to imagine 3 models made of clay. The first as a many-headed hydra that consumed endlessly. The second, a large and powerful lion. And the third, a small human. Plato went on to describe how these beasts of clay would be mashed together in the shape of a human, and like the human soul, would be better off if the rational man joined forces with the spirited lion and controlled the gluttonous hydra, rather than letting the hydra devour the other 2 parts of its soul. In that allegory, the hydra represented our base needs and desires. They represented what satisfies the common man. And in the Persona 5 boss fight with Shido, well, people just represented those people. The lion, however, represents thumotic people, people driven by a desire to win, by a desire to be seen as greater than the people around them. And that was quite literally represented in the boss fight with the golden lion that we fought. And finally, the human chariot rider, which was to represent rationality, was represented by Shido, who in his final form of the boss fight was literally just a muscly dude, showing that he had replaced his understanding of rationality with thumos as well. Sae Nijima, too, was driven almost purely by this thumotic desire to win and be recognized for winning. She let the lion aspect of her soul control her intelligence and her rationality. The boss fight against Shido solidifies the message that if thumotic people are left unlimited and unchecked, their corruption is absolute. It is by this measure of the philosophy of Persona 5 that we come to Goro Akechi. As the constant antagonist of the game, he is intimately aware of the potential injustice of the Phantom Thieves. While none of the criticisms that Akechi made on television held up to scrutiny, the whole time, Akechi was living out the warnings he levied against the Phantom Thieves. He was the corruption that a Phantom Thief would become if left unchecked, with no limits by others. But we're not finished yet, my friends, because there is another palace that we haven't discussed yet. Mementos, the collective unconscious and the palace of the general public. It's time to look at the rules of the metaverse. A palace is created by the distortion in a person's heart. These distortions create the corrupt personalities of people in the real world. And as we've seen with each palace so far, that the influence of power creates these corruptions. So what does that mean for the general public, for society as a whole? Persona 5 is attempting to show us that when a society as a whole grows in power, the corruption we experience is complacency, a general disinterest in the corruption of others, and a willingness to give up our freedom to the distractions that society puts in front of us. This, above all else, is the most sobering idea in the whole game. I made a point to talk to every caged person in the final areas of Mementos, and it was a heart-wrenching experience. Ultimately, Persona 5 is a reminder, not only of the truth that absolute power corrupts absolutely, but of how that truth demands that we stay vigilant, stay woke, and act against that corruption in any way that we can. Thank you for watching, everyone. This game has provided me nearly 200 hours of enjoyment and philosophical inquiry. I want to give a special thank you not just to those who watched to the end of this video, but to everyone who took the time to engage with the other analyses of Persona 5 that got us here. If you enjoyed this video, I am sure you will love the others, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends. I don't pay anyone to advertise the channel, so the only way that we can grow is with your help. I will see you again next week, and, as always, stay true.